Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel and the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. Here we are, Pro Wrestling Logic and the NXT review for the 19th of April, 2022. Show kicks off relatively quickly. New NXT Tag Team Champions, Ethan Pace, Elton Prince, and Kit Wilson, who are known as Pretty Deadly. Besides being new champs, they also have an interesting wardrobe. Deadly then begins to cut a promo on, this is their first real speaking role in NXT. Grizzled Young Veterans interrupt and they cut their own promos on Pretty Deadly. Grizzled Young Veterans then go into how they want a title match tonight. Grizzled Young Veterans might not be their team name anymore, but that's what they call them, at least now out of habit. Elektra Lopez interrupts and leads Legado del Fantasma to the ring. Lopez says that the veterans are not the only team that wants a title shot, and a melee erupts. Fantasma jumps the Grizzled Young Veterans. Pretty Deadly exit the ring so the other teams can fight. NXT champion Braun Breaker comes through the crowd, gets in the ring. Dressed in street clothes, Breaker calls out Joe Gacy. Breaker wants his father, Hall of Fame ring back. So we're having a guy feud over a Hall of Fame ring. Anyway, Gacy appears on the Titantron, screams, hanging around the soundstage. Gacy tells Breaker that Gacy has what Breaker's looking for. Gacy challenges Breaker to find him. Gacy laughs. Breaker then heads backstage in search for him, and this is a show-long skit. Digital exclusive from last Saturday's shows, Santos Escobar cutting a promo on Carmelo Hayes. Hayes joined as usual by Trick Williams, responds to Escobar, who cuts a promo of his own for later on tonight. Tiffany Stratton defeats Suray. Stratton then pins Suray after using a springboard into a corkscrew. Okay match, but the finishing sequence doesn't look that great as Suray takes a pretty well phantom bump. Stratton continues improving in the ring, but she still looks relatively wooden in there, almost as if she's putting things together on the like in a wrestling school way. German suplex earlier in the match. Suray goes for another blocks and holding on to the rope. Stratton then throws her head first back, and Suray takes a bump like she's shot out of a cannon. Breaker is backstage post this match searching for Gacy. He hears the voice of his father, Rick Steiner. His dad is calling out Bronson as Breaker searches for where the sound is coming from. This is completely stupid. Breaker finds the cage that Steiner's trapped in. Inside the cage is an electronic tablet and the source of the sounds. Angry, Breaker breaks the tablet and storms off to continue the search. Pretty Deadly is met by Indy Hartwell and Persia Pirotta. They basically flirt as they ask for a match with Pretty Deadly. That would mean a match against the women. But the women win a match against their boyfriends, Loomis and Hudson. This ends up being the main event match of the show, and why we don't understand. Grayson Waller's backstage interview addressing his split with Sanga. Waller fired him last week after the loss in the gauntlet match. Waller then cuts a promo on Sanga, and Andre Chase and Bodie Hayward interrupt him. Chase then said, "What do we have is a teachable moment," which is a lame catchphrase for sure. Waller begins responding to the door busting open. Sanga. Waller flies in a hurry. Chase erupts as the monster lumbers after his prey. Sanga then chases Waller into the soundstage and into the ring. Referee follows into the squared circle and orders bell to ring the match. Match is now underway. Grayson Waller defeats Sanga. Waller then pins Sanga in the second televised loss on NXT singles match. Although Sanga plays monster in the bout, Waller slaps him in the end. This isn't looking good for his career. Waller manages to counter Sanger as Waller escapes an attempted chokeslam. Waller then sends Sanger crashing into the ring post and sends him running in the ring. Waller does a roll and pops into a cutter. Waller then covers Sanger for a 3 count. Cora Jade vignette cuts a promo on Natalya. Jade even rips the photograph of her younger self with Natalya. Jade then meets Natalya in a match soon. Hype video. Anyway, interviews viewers to Roxanne Perez. She talks about being in ROH in the Indies. She talks about her struggles growing up and how playing WWE video games helped her escape. She made dreams come true and debuts in a WWE ring next week. Roxanne also interviewed backstage by Mackenzie Mitchell. Toxic Attraction Trio interrupts Roxanne and they proceed to bully her. JC Jane tells her to move her debut up a week and Jane challenges Perez to a match tonight. Perez attacks accepts, saying she'll figure something out. Legado del Fantasma with Elektra Lopez and Santos Escobar working against the Grizzled Young Veterans. Fast-paced match, as one would expect. Veterans seem more and more afterthoughts within the brand. They lose the match clean. Santos Escobar joins Legado del Fantasma in the ring to celebrate after the match. Cuts a promo on Carmelo Hayes before the show goes into commercial. Escobar against Hayes is taking place at the top of the second hour. Man, this show feels really, really long, and we're only halfway through. Anyway, Carmelo Hayes with Trick Williams defeats Santos Escobar. Hayes pins Escobar outside interference from unnamed assassins. Babyface turns for Escobar appears to be on the way. Match against Tony D'Angelo is probably coming as well. D'Angelo later in the show denies any involvement in the Tanya Harding style attack on Escobar. Match gets going. Williams cuts to distraction, allows Hayes to strike by the springboard into the flying clothesline. Hayes then is in control, and the show goes to a split screen commercial break. The show comes back full screen, and Hayes remains in control. Pace slows to a crawl, sets up a spot where Escobar gives Hayes delayed vertical suplex for his trouble. Slugfest develops with a fighting spirit engagement. They trade strikes back and forth. Pace soon quickens as Escobar fires up and torpedoes himself through the ropes into a dive. Then, unknown person wearing a suit is suddenly at ringside beside Escobar. Another person in the suit and fedora attacks Escobar and hits a hamstring with a crowbar. Tanya Harding again style angle. Then the two men roll Escobar into the ring. Hayes leaps off the top rope with a guillotine leg drop for his trouble. Hayes then cuts a promo after the match, and Hayes talks about getting a title shot at the spring break-in, which brings out the North American champion Cameron Grimes. Basically looks like a confrontation between the two of them, but nothing comes out of that. Breaker's backstage searching for Gacy, and they then mirror spots from Nitro when Hayward basically they do the old Hogan and Warrior in the mirror spot from 1998. Tension is apparent in the Diamond Mine. Roderick Strong tells Mark and Bivens that Strong himself is the leader of the group. Strong tells Bivens that whoever doesn't agree with Strong's vision of the Diamond Mine is an enemy. Man, this show feels so long. Anyway, Natalya defeats Tatum Paxley. And Natty submits Paxley with a sharpshooter. She carried the match through. Story of the match is very basic. Natty is the ring general, is in control of the majority. Natty makes a comeback and guides her through. Natty feeds into the comeback while directing the match. Paxley gets a 2 count after standing senton, misses a charge in the corner, and then that's the beginning of the end. Natty applies sharpshooter, and Paxley taps out. D'Angelo is in the parking lot, asks about the attack on Escobar. D'Angelo scoffs, making fun of this, and Also ignores the fact that he's involved in the assault at any level. And comedy skit shows Duke Hudson trying game plan with Dexter Loomis, and Ganja is there. Zion Quinn defeats Wes Lee. Quinn pins Lee in a showcase match for them. Then we go to matches set up. They get into a brief argument earlier in the show. Lee puts a lot into the bout, makes a comeback, but doesn't really get too far with it. Botch working as a finish as Quinn levels Lee with a right hand. He is supposed to hit the punch and catch Lee in midair, but Lee runs into it. Quinn then hits Lee with the flying forearm, and it's pretty stiff. Anyway, Natalya is backstage post this confrontation by Nikita Lyons. Natty's up talking about Cora Jade when Lyons confronts her. Lyons then towers over Natty, and they yell at each other, setting up a match between the two in 2 weeks. Roxanne Perez defeats JC Jane with Mandy Rose and Gigi Dolan. Perez is probably the best female new star they have, and luckily we've only got a couple segments left in this mess. But anyway, Perez pins Jane after distraction. Perez looks really good in the ring. The match is getting good when Wendy Chu appears, and then Chu is trashing Toxic Attraction. Chu's antics distract Jane, allowing Perez to bounce it back into action. Perez executes a code red, and Perez scores a win over JC Jane. Escobar is leaving the building when Legado del Fantasma. They're in the parking lot walking to Escobar's SUV. Escobar is still wearing his gear. And then made official for spring break-in 2 weeks' time. Cameron Grimes defends the North American Championship triple threat against Carmelo Hayes and Solo Sikoa. Joe Gacy is watching Braun Breaker on the set of security monitors. Gacy says times he ends this. Anyway, so during the main event, some matches are announced for next Tuesday's NXT. Nikita Lyon, Lash Legend, bad idea. Fallon Henry, Josh Briggs, and Brooks Jensen meet Elektra Lopez and Legado del Fantasma, 6-person mixed tag match, also a bad idea. Solo Sikoa and Trick Williams, not a bad idea. Anyway, NXT Tag Team Champions, Pretty Deadly, Elton Prince and Kit Wilson defeat Dexter Loomis and Duke Hudson, with Indy Hartwell and Persia Pirotta retaining the titles. Prince pins Hudson, and the champs retain. Working the matches, fine, I guess. Certainly not a main event level by any stretch of the imagination. Preliminary finish as well. Anyways, some of the skit, the match has some basic gaga all around. Tag match built to a hot tag. Hudson then cleans house on Pretty Deadly. Cuts off, but Hudson fights back and hits the stretch. Hudson then gets a near fall after a power slam on Prince. Wilson distracts Hudson, which allows Prince to boot Hudson, high kick, and then Prince then covers Hudson, hooks the leg in, gets a pinfall. Champs retain. Gacy then pushes Braun Breaker over the edge to close the show. Angle goes on too long. Soundstage goes dark. Gacy tells Breaker that he will return Rick Steiner's Hall of Fame ring under one condition. Gacy's granted a spring break-in title shot in 2 weeks. Breaker accepts the challenge because, of course, he does, and places the Hall of Fame ring in his pocket of Breaker's denim vest. And then Gacy tells Breaker that there's one last thing he needs to do, and that's take a leap of faith. Gacy shoves Breaker backwards. Breaker takes a bump off the platform they're standing on. Breaker's down, selling the fall. Gacy stands on the platform. Gacy then wears a smile, and Druid's cloak in black suddenly appear. Druid's cover Breaker as he screams for them to get off of him. Show closes, and this is a horrible storyline. I don't believe this is on national television, but you don't really need standards for pro wrestling these days. We'll be back with more right after this.